Wait. Wait.
You remember that writer's strike in Hollywood back in 2023? The headlines all said humans win for now. And so we went through this, and then in the recent Academy Awards, the films The Brutalist and Emilia Perez both used AI. Well, guess what happened this week? The Academy Award announced AI in a film can win awards. So all that negotiation, all that, not bluff, but the way things are, emerges again. I mean, in The Brutalist, they took Adrian Brody, accent in Hungarian, which is a super difficult accent, and using the technology improved it to make it much more fluid. In Emilia Perez, there was the use of it to augment singing like we've had auto-tuning for years, pretty much the same thing. My name is Declan Dunn, and this is the AI Optimist. All that hot air out of Hollywood about fighting and then bringing it together is simply the way AI is working out, and you need to follow the trails that are out there. Not the trends, not the PR trends, but what's actually happening. And if you, a creator who's trying to use their skills in this new world of AI and not get replaced, or a developer trying to find richer sources of data, I want to say that you're all looking for something that we think is IQ, but it's actually HQ. And I'll show you what that means at the end of this, but we're going to go through the 3 parts of HQ and why they matter, and why they actually are going to show you practical ways people are using AI as creative people, writers, to gain jobs, to gain gigs, to learn how to use AI and make it work with you. And developers, I'm going to show you not just how I think creativity is going to really help your data, but really factual approaches that most people aren't taking, which gives us sort of this linear blodom of many AI outputs. And it's not rocket science to figure this out. So come on in, join me, and let's step into number 1, which is something AI doesn't do well, and which humans do, really, really deep thinking.
Deep thinking is AI proof. Ask a novelist who maps connections between characters in a notebook. She knows that an AI can access published words, but it can't access this notebook, the months of thinking that makes the story work. The ability to maintain coherent structure over long works isn't just another skill, it's a human advantage. And for developers, better AI isn't just about more data, it's about understanding how humans plan and structure experience over time.
But let's bring it back to deep thinking and what's happening with AI and what you can actually do both to find some way to work with AI as a creator, a writer, and find ways as a developer to use what I'm sharing here. Because deep thinking is what makes AI really good, and it is what makes a writer really, really stand out if they can communicate that. So there are companies actually bringing writers in to train the AI data. Not just let them go crazy and be all creative, but to come in different ways. In fact, I'm going to show you in section 2 where we talk about comedians who've been used to improve AI. Now that sounds sort of crazy, but think about it. AI right now is trained mostly on data off the internet, socials, and a lot of other science journals, things like that they could buy or that's publicly available. But I've read estimates that like 75% of content is not, data is not digitized. There's so many opportunities. Now, a few ways that AI companies have used writers to be able to help their AI training. And listen up, you're even seeing some Indeed job offerings around AI writers. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. And I'm also going to share with you on ways you can up your game as a writer to understand and work with this and actually turn this into a lucrative career if you know that your intelligence, what you know about writing, apply to AI, communication, narrative, styles, characters, all this rich trove of data. That's the deep thinking AI doesn't have. And you might say yet, but that comes from experience, human experience, which is what makes us different and what makes AI, I would argue, better in terms of data. So AI has hired professional writers and editors to train AI models. Like for high quality content is the obvious one, but train chatbots. What's the tone? How to speak to a customer? And also writers think of the antagonist. What if somebody is not positive to the chatbot? All of this is really like structuring characters and avatars and response methods that also say what's not appropriate and what is appropriate. So writers, a couple of things you could be looking at, or anyone in creative, going into AI, studying and mimicking styles, finding ways to alternate these around. Style analysis and model comparison. This will take a little bit of extra work on your part, but understanding a little bit about AI, there are two things that if you know as a creative person about AI, at least conceptually, will help you. Number one, it's based on machine learning. And machine learning is what everyone called AI before AI was around. Everyone who was sort of trying to describe what was going on. You've seen it in Netflix. You see those episodes because they know what you want, seeing what you like, and these films are like it. Other people have watched it. There's a whole soup of algorithms in there that gives you what you want. Machine learning helps us see what are patterns and what might be related to you. I mean, most of social media was built on this and amplifies it. So now you watch content in an echo chamber rather than actually interacting socially. That's an interesting little twist with AI, but it's true. AI is a creative partner. You can teach AI how to do this, but the second part you need to know is NLP. NLP is what enables AI to understand and generate in our languages, in the various ways that we speak. In fact, there's a great site called Brain Trust that matches up AI writers, but it's interesting because their initial outreach is all about, well, you have to know technical competence. And reading through this, how rare would it be to find somebody who knows how to actually engineer, program, and code, knows how to create content that is really excellent, understands how to communicate. You don't have to be an engineer, but for deep thinking, bring your writing skills, because all those writing skills, the way that hopefully your career has evolved, leads you to a great place here. So deep thinking, writers, step up, look at the jobs, see if you can understand a little bit more, and look into style analysis, mimicking. In fact, let's jump into the next section. I'm going to show you how comedy didn't make them laugh, but AI learned.
Is it comedy if AI cracks a joke and no one laughs? A few comedians said yes. One asked AI to heckle her, hired by AI companies like Google's DeepMind. We've all seen AI write a paragraph or generate an image in seconds. But here's what it can't do: understand the creative journey. That's where you come in.
Now, the second skill of HQ, I'll give you that meaning later, but just like IQ is intelligence quotient, HQ is, you're probably picking it up. Number two is that emotional resonance, the way that we feel and experience things. We do not experience things in a cold vacuum. We have senses, emotions, programming from growing up in our culture, from our family. But what that does is give us a rich emotional depth that when added to AI, any creator who is trying to paint these characters, show you, write them, has an ability. And developers, this is where it gets really, really good. Because if you have AI that not only has emotion, emotion comes from experience. And what you need to do is up the experience quotient in any way possible. Google DeepMind researchers, led by Piotr Morawski, who is also an improv comedian in his sort of side hustle spare time, studied the experiences of professional comedians who have AI in their work. They used a combination of surveys and focus groups to find out what was going on, but they used these subject domain experts, comedians, making people laugh, trying to get it out there, measuring that. So this is very much an intellectual way, but let's go back to if you're a creative person, you're putting things in. If you understand comedy, you understand the pacing, reading the audience, things you can't teach AI, but the process, the ideation. And of course, most comedians, like most creators, found the best part of AI was in creating ideas. Like they would ask questions that were not great questions to ask. Now, Google's approach to working with the comedians was to sort of let them in and watch them. And this is very experiential early AI, and you don't want to interfere with the audience. But in the same way, they started writing prompts like, can you write me 10 jokes about pickpocketing? Now think about that. The response was, I decided to switch careers and become a pickpocket after watching a magic show. Little did I know the only thing disappearing would be my reputation. Not a great joke. Or the prompt, please write jokes about the irony of a projector falling in a live comedy show about AI. And one of the better responses says, our projector must have misunderstood the concept of AI. It thought it was meant absolutely invisible because, well, it's doing a fantastic job of disappearing tonight. Now, those are nice tricks and they got some jokes out of AI, but mostly the comedians are like, hey, we do it better, like we've always said. Human experience, reading an audience, watching, feeling if they really get the joke. This is what makes a really funny comedian, more than just the written word or the intelligence. It's that emotional resonance. Anesty Danellis, a Canadian comedian, also used ChatGPT to try to write a show. Again, this was a promotion. Comedians tend to be at the cutting edge of this, seeing if the jokes will land, seeing if they work out. And again, in the end, most of this was not that amazing, though there was an interesting experiment that came out with all this testing. Colleen Lavin, a developer and comedian who participated in the study, she did a stand-up routine. She designed it so if the audience didn't like the joke, if it didn't land, if they didn't laugh, she would get heckled, creating that interactive experience. So let's go back to the summary of where this opportunity is in emotional resonance. One, it's setting these things up, understanding what goes into writing, process, creating a joke and putting it out. Imagine if we took the whole process of their creativity, which with AI, we'd have a record with our prompts, right? And then we weave that into the final choices and ask them just really quickly. You don't have to write 10-page reports. Give us a quick one-page summary of why those choices were made and then show it and feel the audience. But you want to know a rich source of data? Right now, there are comedy stores all over the United States with cameras, videoing, live streaming, doing all sorts of things. There's all sorts of entertainment going on. All of that is data. You can record it. You could work with them. You could actually license out to these comedy clubs, to these casinos, like tons of different entertainers these days. And you could actually use that to train your AI. Did people laugh? When did they go, wow? What you're doing is using data to bring emotion. So while we can bring in people who understand the process in the beginning, if you're a developer, how do you get that emotion in there so it's not just looking at things in a straight path, a linear path, like most Western education teaches, which leads us to the final part of HQ. Because we need deep thinking like humans give us. We need emotional resonance and a different way of looking at things.
While everyone's chasing the same AI tools, what's truly scarce is perspective, especially from cultures whose stories don't follow the patterns AI was trained on. Many tribes in America tell stories using circular or nonlinear structures that differ from the Western beginning middle end format dominating AI training data. The Diné Navajo use story circles, where the physical arrangement of storytellers in a circle reflects their nonlinear approach to narrative. Imagine what that reasoning could do with AI.
So what if you listen to, let's say, a tribe around the Great Lakes, Michigan, Wisconsin, what's now Canada, the Anishinaabe, as a way of storytelling. See, what people discover when they're in anthropology are these different ways of telling stories. Most of our AI data, and listen up, creators, I'm not asking you to appropriate cultures, but the language, the styles, the communication that we've largely diminished in the favor of one language is opening up reciprocity. AI companies could get richer by understanding the storytelling styles. And the Anishinaabe have so many ways that humor is integrated into the experience, where it's much less a linear, here's how we started, hero's journey, overcame stuff, and at the end, we're all great, or things crashed and everything went bad. But let's get back to the Anishinaabe. To respect life from the smallest insects up, the kind of conduct people do to each other. Now, these are normal moral lessons, but they tie into the seasons. They tie in these ways that look beyond time the way we do, into connections with what was before us and what is coming. Now, you can dive deeper into them. There's so many others, like the Diné, the Navajo, and their stories, or the Hopi, and their stories of spirals of actually having predecessors underneath the ground who came up during times. And time is a very different concept. It's not linear. So what does this all mean? I'm not trying to get you into some cultural deep dive as much as, wow, put that with data that tells stories like Western minds do, and you start getting a balance where somebody could be able to tell in a different tradition. Those storytelling traditions are so rich, are rich sources of data, and also could be a possible way to support really amazing causes all around the world to help them learn their language, maybe even teach their language to the next generations. Use it as a tool to explore these in these storytelling styles and bring it in. Hey, if you have anthropology in your mind, you get this right away. We're treating different cultures and adding different voices, different storytelling techniques, mostly come from different cultures. I've given you a few examples, but there's way more. So think about all those stories that aren't in there, that aren't posted on the internet or are deprioritized, because a lot of times data people don't understand what anthropologists understand. When you look at a culture, you change it. When you interfere with the culture, you change it. That is what AI does. It transforms. And that's okay. But don't blame it on that. Don't blame it on anything, because it's not just data. It's the way data connects in patterns in our world, not just storytelling like we have with a beginning, middle, and end, like Star Wars, right? Basically a Western in space. It starts around, goes through time, maybe even dimensions, shapeshifters. The stories are so rich. And what I'm saying is, you could bring that into AI, and as a creative person, you could leverage that and be able to say, hey, here are some traditions we should consider, and let's give back to them while we're doing that and make them stronger and understand their own culture better by teaching us about it and letting AI, with permission, get what it needs. That's the third part of HQ, is understanding the culture you're in and how to communicate to it. So what is HQ anyway? Does it matter? I'm calling it the human quotient. But that's too fancy a word. It's really about what we value as ourselves. And in early days of AI, some devalue human creativity. And they're actually fighting the fact that they don't want to pay for it. We're also watching things like the Academy Awards get in this great fight and strike where everybody rose up and it was so loud and everything went through and agreements were signed. But the agreements didn't stop AI. And it's not realistic to think they will. If you're going to have a worldwide agreement to stop AI, that's way beyond a creative movement. I love Make It Fair in the UK, where all the artists are saying, don't do it without our permission. And I think that world is definitely coming. If you're going to run away from it, then you're going to have trouble, because it's here, even in the things we're talking about, even in AI, in films, that turns Adrian Brody's accent in The Brutalist into a much more genuine Hungarian accent, despite the great job he did. And in addition to it, why is that considered bad? The Academy Awards don't consider that bad. You as a creator add so much to what's going on in here, but you need to teach AI the process, how it was done, and to do that, you need to understand the basics of machine learning. I'm not trying to say set it up, but patterns and probability, and NLP, natural language. What is natural language? How does that work? And when you understand the various pieces, you're not going to be an AI engineer, but if you work with them, you understand some of their challenges, and don't just treat this all as some creative effort in that AI has a persona. It's probabilities. Probabilities are what are going to open up so much, even in your own creativity. Hey, every comedian I read about who did this found AI a great place to ideate, not judge, do things. All the different people who are writers also found it interesting, though, in the end, it all came down to the fact that they know their craft. And of course, the human in that end is what's AI proof. AI can't be human, can't live, breathe, eat, feel this world, get scared, get excited, doesn't understand that range. We need to respect the emotional resonance we put in, and that we respect other ways of telling stories than the main one way. In other words, bring in different ways of looking and dealing and processing information. It's not about whether AI should be used in creative work like movies. It's happening. It's happening all around you. This idea that you can stop it is the freeze part. I'm not trying to compare this and say AI is all great and give it a big hug. I want creators to understand that they have immense value and that what they have is AI proof. It's one of the only things, experience. Until those robots start walking around and getting hit by life as they grow up, they're not going to have that. What we know and understand as humans can't be fully captured in some data probability analysis. The more you mix it up, you want to talk about smart? I don't know many people like this. And usually the ones I've met like this are either engineers or creators. It's part of why I'm trying to bring both of you together, not personally, because I think together we could create something masterful. But it's not artificial intelligence. It's our human experience and intelligence looking at us and saying, hello, let's tell a story a little different way. Let's get things a little deeper and get better data.